It is me, Christopher Elliott, and I am so happy to see you again. Thanks for joining me. It is a Sunday morning here in Christchurch, New Zealand, Saturday evening back in the US. And I don't know wherever you are, but I have a feeling that I know why you've decided to join me. And that's because you, number one, don't like to get your news from an AI. And I'm definitely not an AI. And number two, you want to get your news ahead of time. So we are actually a full day ahead of you. So you are getting tomorrow's news today. Isn't that great? I would love to see your comments because these live streams are not real live streams unless you leave your comments. If you are watching this live, please leave a comment. Let me know where you are because after all, we have a global audience and I love hearing from people all around the world. So tell me where you are. Today's topic is going to be, we're talking about airline flights this summer. Now I realize that if you are somewhere else in the world, it might not be summer, but in June, July, and August, at least in the United States, we are projected to have a huge surge of extra passengers, and there's going to be a high chance of a meltdown of some kind happening. We already had one over the holidays. You may have heard of the holiday meltdown involving Southwest Airlines. The projections that we're getting from the experts are saying that it could be much, much worse this summer. So I would love to know, number one, where are you? And number two, what are your favorite strategies for avoiding a meltdown any time of the year, but specifically during the summer? Now, during the summer, you have things like thunderstorms. In the US, we have somewhere around the 4th of July weekend is the peak of thunderstorm season. Then you have at the end of the summer, around about Labor Day, which is end of August, early September, you have hurricane season. That makes it very, very difficult to schedule any kind of flights with any regularity because flights get canceled all the time around then. And you also have peak demand. So would love to know. Number one, where are you? And number two, what are your favorite strategies? Do you book in the first flight out of the day, for instance? I know a lot of folks like to try to do that. So leave me your comments. Love to see that. I have a lot to talk about today, and I want to talk to you too. So if you are watching this live, please leave a comment. Let me know where you are. Even if you have just any kind of question at all, I'd love to answer it. My website here is elliott.org. So if you are watching this and it's not live and you don't have anything to do this weekend, hang out with me on my website at elliott.org. I'll be there. I'm always checking the comment section. So I love to answer your comments there. And it's almost live. We had a fascinating discussion about no-fly lists yesterday. But before I get to that, let's scroll over and check out some of your comments. Hey, it's Christine. Christine, thank you so much for being part of the live stream. I'm just getting this thing started, so we don't have a lot of people watching live. A lot of folks will tune in later in the day and watch at their leisure, but not a lot of people are watching it live. So you're one of the first, and thank you for being there. Umar, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name, says, I need remote work. Okay, Umar, I would love to consider that. Bob, checking in. Hey, Bob, how are you? Bob was actually our first guest on this live stream. Glad to have you back, Bob. It's good to see you. I don't know, where are you, by the way? You're always traveling, so I don't even know where you are, but would love to know. Okay, so let's see here. We talked yesterday about no-fly lists, and I wanted to rewind to that because I got some really interesting questions and comments after the live stream. One of them came from William, who says that I usually fly over to Europe when I travel, and when I travel at all, I believe that anyone who refuses to cooperate with the cabin crew should be banned totally from flying. I got a lot of comments like that from people who said, look, there should be absolutely a zero tolerance policy when someone acts up, someone disobeys the orders of a flight attendant, someone takes a swing at a fellow passenger. We saw what happened on that New York subway, it's still mass transit. that was just a horrible thing. And we've had all of these other incidents that we've seen over the last couple of weeks and months, ever since really the pandemic. And there has to be a way of putting an end to that. I have also said, and I believe that this is true, that there's more at work here than just people misbehaving for whatever random reason. I think that if you take people and put them into a small cabin and try to wedge them into a really small seat, that they're going to start misbehaving. Then if you start giving them alcohol, then things get really, really crazy, because people get drunk, and then they sometimes will take pharmaceuticals, and then they're stuck in a small seat, and maybe there's a child behind them screaming, or maybe shaking the seat, and it's just not a good situation at all. So there is that, and I think that the airlines do bear some responsibility, that they need to make the flying conditions a little bit more humane than they currently are. Maybe they should be giving people a little bit more personal space, maybe a little bit more legroom. Maybe they shouldn't be serving alcohol, especially on those really short flights. There's really no reason to be serving people drinks. I have always favored a complete ban on alcohol. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But during the pandemic, miraculously, it did happen. And I think that airlines should have really kept that going. That's just my personal opinion. The second thing, the second comment that I wanted to mention, we also got a lot of comments about this from Johan, was that no-fly list should not exist. It should be up to each company to decide whether to fly someone or not. To create a generic federal list that's been proven to be full of mistakes is truly unconstitutional. And Johan, I think that there might be some constitutional issues here, because the freedom of movement is something that is implied in some of the founding documents, in the Constitution, and some other, and indeed, I believe the Bill of Rights also talks a little bit about freedom of movement. Today is not my day for civics, so don't hold me to that. But still, there are. I've done the research on this, and there is a precedent for freedom of movement, freedom of travel. If you do have the government saying now you can't travel, you can't fly, that may present some issues. We don't know what those are yet. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not legally trained, but there are people out there, civil libertarians, who are keeping a very close eye on this, and I think that they'll have something to say when there is an issue with flying, with no-fly lists. We have more comments. Oh yes, Bob says he's in Philadelphia. Okay, good. Yeah, I have a Philadelphia story coming out on Monday, and I think you're going to like that. And we have someone else saying hi, Siridaran. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hey, how are you doing? Love to know where you are. And Christine says she agrees with banning alcohol on flights. That's good. I don't have a problem with drinking. I don't have a problem with people drinking in the privacy of their home or in a restaurant. But, going out and then driving is a problem. Drunk driving is a huge issue in the United States and elsewhere. But also, getting on a plane in a pressurized aluminum tube, being fully drunk, like a lot of passengers are, it's really hard for flight attendants to screen for passengers who are inebriated. It's not like you're going to be giving them a breathalyzer test or anything like that. And then, once you get on the plane, the flight attendants are actually incentivized to sell you more alcohol. And so that's what they do. And then people get even more drunk. The air pressure, the pressurized cabin also has an effect on, apparently you can't metabolize the alcohol that easily. So it's just a very bad chain reaction, sets off a chain reaction, and that is an issue. Question from a Facebook user. We're just jumping around here, sorry. It is live streaming, so anything can happen. My trip insurance nationwide refused to pay claim due to operational issues. Delta Airlines canceled numerous flights over the last Christmas. I remember when all that happened due to weather, blizzard, and heavy snowfall. They call it operational issues. What can I do to recover my loss of prepaid services for my trip? Nationwide will only cover due to weather and not operational issues. Oh boy. I wish I had good news for you. First of all, you can go to my website, elliottadvocacy.org. Go there and fill out that form, and you can give us more details on what happened. There may be some hope for you, but just generally speaking, travel insurance only pays for certain things, and those are spelled out in your policy. So if you want to get paid for more than that, you can get something that's called a cancel for any reason insurance policy. And that way, if you just don't want to travel, you can say, I don't want to travel, and it'll pay you anywhere between 50 and 75% of the value of your claim. So the travel insurance company will only pay you part of that. But these are called named perils in the travel insurance industry. And so you have to actually have a peril that is named. It has to be something that's in the policy that says it's specifically covered. Otherwise, it won't. But things like damages, so lost time for work or lost vacation time, that is not something that's typically covered with your travel insurance policy. I wish it were, and I hate being the bearer of bad news. But still, I would fill out that form on our website, and someone will get back to you. It may even be me. I'm not doing very much today. I'm sitting here working and live streaming too. Okay. Christine says that on a plane is quite different. That we're talking about alcohol. Yep, totally agree with you on that. Bob says alcohol and sedatives have been accounted for most of the medical emergencies our team have been asked to intervene for during flights. Okay. Bob is actually a subject matter expert on this. He runs a business called Flying Angels. So they do medical transportation. So if you want an expert opinion, here it is. Alcohol and sedatives, that's what's going on. I mean, it's totally understandable that you would want to take an Ambien and to maybe get to sleep, especially if you're a nervous flyer. But I have actually written lots and lots of stories about people who have had like in-flight incidences where they're incidents and they've maybe lashed out at someone or they've done worse. A couple of years back, we had a first-class flyer who actually defecated in the first-class cabin, and he actually ended up having other medical issues. But it was Ambien and a Chardonnay, I believe, that was to blame for that. So don't mix the two, please. Otherwise, things like that could easily happen. From a LinkedIn user, should I accept insurance on car rentals? No, not really. What you need to do is make sure that you have insurance before you rent the car. Sometimes your credit card will cover you. Sometimes you can get insurance through your car insurance. That works pretty well as well. There are also companies that will sell you, just if you have a regular travel insurance policy, that will sell you an add-on or a rider that will cover your car. But typically, a lot of people do not know this, that car insurance, a car rental insurance, is the most profitable part of a car rental company's operations. So it's in their best interests to sell you, to really push that hard. And when I say push that really hard, I remember when I was renting a car in Anchorage a couple of years back, and I actually told the woman at the counter that I didn't want the insurance, and she brings these photos up that say this, it was a totally trashed car, and it was a rental car, but it had it was basically broken in half, something that was crazy. And she said, this could happen to you. You're in Alaska. Are you sure you don't want insurance? And I thought that was a really heavy-handed sales tactic. I was actually covered by my insurance, and I told her, no, I'm covered by my insurance. But that's what they do. And the reason that they do it is because they're making a lot of money. A lot of times, the agents at the counter are being incentivized. So if the ones that sell the most insurance to customers actually get promoted and they get bonuses, sometimes six-figure bonuses. So you really got to watch out. Don't buy the insurance unless you absolutely have to, unless there's no other choice, because it's actually quite expensive too. Aiden from Boston. Hey, Aiden, how are you? Thanks for the session. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're here too. We're planning to spend a few weeks in Cape Cod this summer. Last year, the Cape Cod area had labor shortages where restaurants had limited hours. Shops were closed on certain days. What are travel experts predicting for possibly less than desirable travel experiences this summer due to labor shortages? Thanks. And thank you, Aiden, for the question. What we know is that a lot of hotels still are having labor shortages, even now, 3 years after the pandemic. Look, there was the Great Resignation. A lot of people quit and said, I'm not going to be dealing with this. It's a minimum wage job. It's a thankless job. No one wants to be in this situation. And so they left. And it was not just hotels, but it was in the entire hospitality industry, so restaurants as well. It would not surprise me, and I've spoken with people who tell me that this is still an issue, but it would not surprise me if you still had that situation this summer on Cape Cod. Is there a place that you can go to get away from that? Well, if you need to go to Cape Cod, you're not going to be able to get away from that at all. But there are other cities, maybe larger cities that don't, where you have more selection. So if you went to a place like Philadelphia or New York, not that I would recommend going to Philadelphia and New York for vacation, but maybe a nice cultural vacation there, you are going to have many more options, and you won't have to worry about closures like that. But certainly this is something this summer, and I think even going into next summer, that we're going to have to worry about, because basically people quit and then they never came back, and that is still really an issue. And I have to say, it will continue to be an issue until hotels start paying a living wage. Hotels and especially restaurants. I mean, look, our tips are subsidizing the wages of these restaurant servers. And until that ends, until the restaurants in the United States catch up with the rest of the world and start paying their people a living wage, we're going to have problems. I don't know what the solution is. I think that certainly, and okay, some of you are not going to be happy when I say this, but the federal government or the state government does have a role to play here. They can deal with the whole tips issue and the taxability of tips, and also the minimum wage. There's a waiver, for example, for restaurants. They should be subject to the same minimum wage laws. So that's just my 2 cents here. Oh no, Bob, I think I offended you here. Philly is a great place for a vacation. It is. I actually have been to Philadelphia several times on a vacation or on assignment, and I love it. But people like to get out of the city during the middle of the summer. It's hot, they want to go somewhere. That's what I meant. Please don't be offended, Bob. Please don't be offended. Hey, I love your comments. So if you are watching this live, please send me your comments. We're talking about ways to avoid an air travel meltdown this summer. So tell me first where you are in the world, because we have a global audience here. And then second of all, what your favorite way is of avoiding a meltdown, maybe not even just during the summer, but anytime. How do you avoid getting yourself into a pickle when you're flying? We have another LinkedIn user saying that if the economy and employment is so good, then why do we have 100 interviews to get one offer? Okay, I'm assuming that you are a job seeker. I think that people are very cautious right now about the economy and about the prospects for the economy, at least in the United States. And so they're being very, extra careful about hiring and things like that. I don't know what accounts for the more rigorous screening. I did not have to go through, when I was still working in the workforce and I had a 9-to-5 job, I didn't have to go through 100 interviews. That seems like a lot, but certainly I got screened by a lot of people. So I don't think that's so unusual. Oh, we've got more comments. Frenchie in the Bronx. All right, cool. Hey, I love it. That is great. I'm always glad. I can see how many people are tuning in. And I know that we have folks who are coming in live, which is great. But we also have people who are tuning in later on, which I am so grateful for. I actually love reading your comments later on. I will come back and I will answer them. So if you're seeing this, don't click away. Let me know what your favorite way is of avoiding a summer air travel meltdown, and I will answer those for you. Okay, keep those comments coming, please. And let's go over here and talk a little bit about the summer, because it's going to be one heck of a summer. I just got something from Kayak that said summer flight searches are up 42% from last year. So from last summer, their interest in flying is up 42%, and it's especially high for international. And that means people are going to be wanting to get out and fly long distances to go somewhere else outside the country. And that also means that there's going to be a lot of, we don't know exactly how much yet, but I have talked to some airlines. Advanced bookings are very, very healthy. And also, we just had earnings season. And so the airline said the summer is looking really, really good. So first of all, you have to be a complete idiot to not make any money this summer as an airline. So any airline that says, oh, we're not doing so well, they're being run by idiots. every airline is going to make a profit this summer. They're going to do very well. Airfares are very high and will probably continue to rise, at least for the early part of the summer. Now, in the later part of the summer, you do have some airfare sales that normally start because demand softens a little bit, and then you get the fall, which is shoulder season, and then you start seeing some very, very low and affordable prices. But for right now, if you want to fly somewhere, especially internationally, you're going to pay a lot of money. Now, to add to that, the problem is going to be the possibility of an air travel meltdown. And you have all these factors. You have an air traffic control problem where there just aren't enough air traffic controllers. You have a pilot problem where there are not enough pilots too. We have a shortage, and it's going to reach epidemic proportions, according to an Oliver Wyman study that I read, by about 2032, where you're just going to have like a deficiency, 20% deficiency in pilots, which is crazy. No one to fly the plane. Then you have this crush of demand. Everyone wants to fly somewhere, high prices. Then you have the weather, and then you have the other operational challenges that we've seen. So the technology, you have the staffing issues at airlines where you had a lot of people who left the airline industry during the pandemic and haven't come back. So airlines have been cutting some of their flights, but the experts that I talked to say it's not enough. And so what's going to happen this summer is you're going to have flights that don't have a crew, and then you're going to have the possibility of weather, the weather delay possibilities that I was talking about, where you have the thunderstorms around the 4th of July weekend. That's when they peak. And then you have, at the end of the summer, you have hurricane season that starts in the United States. It's just going to be crazy. And I think that it's going to make what happened this last season, this last holiday season, look like nothing. So we may have multiple meltdowns that are going to happen. And I am very, very concerned about that. So what do we do? How do you avoid being stuck in a meltdown? One of my favorite strategies in the world is booking the first flight of the day out. And the reason that this works so well, especially at a hub airport, is that if that flight gets canceled, then you have the next flight, the next flight, the next flight that are all going out. And so you have multiple choices for getting rebooked. The other thing is that that first flight of the day is the least likely to get canceled, because usually it's a plane that came in overnight. So the previous day, they park it at the gate, and then that's the first flight that they use out the next morning. So the chances of that first flight being canceled is not that great. We have more comments. And I love your comments. I will interrupt anything that I do for your comments. Janet is in Clearwater, Florida. Yep, one of my favorite places. I love Florida. Used to live in Florida. Would rather avoid summer travel, but we are flying to Seattle. Oh, I was going to save that one for last, but let's get to it right now. The best way of avoiding a meltdown on an airline this summer is not to fly at all. I love that advice. It's common sense. But for someone like you, Janet, if you want to drive from Clearwater to Seattle, that's a little bit of a drive. That's going to be 4.5, 5 days in a car. Better to fly. So definitely, if you can avoid flying this summer, maybe postpone your trip to September or October. That actually, September is one of the best times to be in Seattle. I don't know if you've given that any thought, but the weather is still pretty good. You don't have to worry about the rain as much, and all the tourists are gone. It's really quite nice. I've experienced some nice times in Seattle during September and during the fall, and also the Seattle Times, which carries my column, which I'm very happy about. You guys are great. Love the Seattle Times. Anyway, another LinkedIn user says, talk about angry and flying. Have COVID made us any less patient at the airport? Oh, absolutely. I think that you've kind of answered your question. What happened with COVID is that any veneer of politeness was removed when people put the masks on, and then people started taking the masks off, and people started fighting about that. And then they were very concerned about their personal space and being contaminated. And it just brought out the worst in us, unfortunately. So COVID did, and I don't know if it's ever going to come back. That's the unfortunate thing, is now when you fly, really have to worry about the people next to you. Is this person going to take a swing at me? Now you don't have to wear a mask anymore, but as recently as January and February, you still had to wear a mask if you were flying on like a Spanish airline. I think they removed their mask requirements in March, so not that long ago. And if someone was not masking up, what do you do? There are these confrontations. I don't know. I hope that things go back. We have to talk about we've got to talk about manners at some point, because I think that that's really kind of what it comes down to, is how do we bring manners back without forcing people to be nice to each other? You don't want to do that. Janet, hey, I love these comments. Thank you. Keep them coming. Janet says, hoping midweek is better than weekend flights. Yeah, it is. I mean, look, everyone wants to fly out on a Friday and return on a Monday. Business travelers are there too, although the really smart business travelers do not fly at all during the summer because they know better. But yeah, midweek is going to be a better time. Also, if you go to something like Google Flights or Kayak and you look at the rates, the fares that are being charged, not just for flights, but also for hotels, you'll see that midweek is much less expensive because there's less demand. During the peak summer weeks, so 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, which is upcoming soon, that rule is kind of suspended because everyone wants to be traveling that week. But certainly during the less busy summer months, yeah, you can definitely get something. More comments here from a Facebook user. First, don't fly in summer. Okay, gotcha. Yes, don't fly in summer. If you must, arrive early. Totally love that comment. Good advice. Very early, very early. Take a day flight to London so you can avoid jet lag. Yeah, that's a good one too. Go to bed since you land late at night. Then go on to your actual destination the next day. You can do it totally without days of jet lag. We should do a whole thing on jet lag, because that's I've dealt with crazy jet lag in my travels. As you know, I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand. That is I want to say 14-hour time difference. So if you come here, it's gonna wipe you out. Not a good situation. But I actually love the arriving early. That is an excellent piece of advice. And too often it's obvious, but too often overlooked. People say, "Oh, I've got plenty of time." Just had a guy who said, "I arrived on time, and we were standing in line, and they closed the gate, and we didn't make our flight." Well, he may have arrived on time for the departure, but remember that they will check you in. Sometimes they'll close the gate an hour early, half an hour early, depends on the flight or where you're flying to. But they'll close the check-in, and then everyone will leave. So my advice for summer travel is, I would say 2 hours for domestic, 3 hours for international, but would love to know what your opinion is. How early is too early, and how late is too late? Okay. Where's Aiden? Aiden's sleeping upstairs. Aiden is my son. Hi from San Diego. We had a really unfortunate experience with Delta using tickets we booked through Expedia. Okay, just jumping around here. The Delta supervisor I spoke with basically told me I had made a mistake by buying a cheap ticket, and that she couldn't help me. I actually used Expedia for more than 10 years and never had a problem. Now I'm worried about continuing to use them. Okay, first of all, if this is still unresolved, I want you to fill out the form on my site. It looks like you may have booked a mistake fare, maybe, but that's something that Expedia needs to get back to you in writing. They need to explain what happened to you. Please fill out the form. It's elliottadvocacy.org/help, or you can go to elliott.org, ELLIOTT/help. Those will both take you to the same form. Fill out the form, please. I would like to be able to help you. My team is here, and we stand ready to assist, and we will find truth and justice here for you. Bob says, to decrease stress, we're jumping back to the other topic now, don't schedule a 30-minute connection. Yes, definitely don't. I'm always fascinated when a plane arrives on time and the flight attendant is making announcements about people with tight connections. Oh yeah, and the thing I love, Bob, is when they make everyone remain seated, and the people with connections, who are always, for some reason, in the very back of the plane, come running to the front and then leave, and they're just trying to get to that next plane. And so one of the pieces of advice that I got from some real insiders was if you have a tight connection, which you shouldn't, but if you do, make sure that you're sitting up front. So that way you can, make a run for it if you do happen to be a little bit late. But that's really, really excellent advice. Um, we're getting some amazingly good comments. Thanks, guys. Okay. Flew yesterday. Passengers jam-packed, passengers carrying enormous amounts of carry-ons, tiny seats. I'm 4'11" and I'm smooshed from Alaska. Hello, Alaska. Yes, that's the kind of summer we're talking about here. People being smooshed, uh, jam-packed, stampede. I mean, you can use all those words. I am actually having a really great time writing stories because I get to use my big words. And it's like writing a novel, really, like prepare for doom. But there are some excellent strategies that you guys have shared with me here today, and this is just really, really great. So I'm really excited to do this podcast. I love you guys. You're my buds, and I'm glad you tuned in. This time, I actually put out a little notice saying that I was going to have a podcast, or I'm keep calling it a podcast, a live stream, and here I am. Look, we got that comment. I love your comments. What is the luggage etiquette to go to the bathroom? Luggage etiquette? Oh, you mean taking luggage into the bathroom with you? Look, I think that's what you mean. If you mean like, should I take my large carry-on bag into the bathroom with me? There's no rule that says you can't do that. It's absolutely fine. I usually have a little toiletry bag that I put in the very top of my backpack so that on a extra long flight, like there was this flight that we took on Qatar Airways. It was from Houston to Doha, and it lasted like 35 hours. I'm kidding. It wasn't 35 hours. It seemed like 35 hours. So anyway, we were on this flight, and I just I took my toiletry bag out when I wanted to brush my teeth, and took it into the bathroom, and that was fine. I've never seen someone take a huge like rollerboard into there because the bathrooms aren't really big enough to accommodate that. So I think maybe you can take that bag in with you, but maybe you shouldn't, just because, I mean, can you imagine getting stuck in there with your bag and you can't open the door, and maybe you're not fully clothed and they have to come in there and try to pry you out? That would not be a good situation. So maybe take the toiletry bag, don't take the carry-on. That would be my advice. Anyway, we're past our time. I promise to keep these to half an hour because, you have things to do, I have things to do. So we're past our time. I've really, really enjoyed being with you today. I am loving these live streams. They are so much fun, and we're multi-streaming actually on several platforms. So we're on LinkedIn. We've got a lot of good LinkedIn users, Facebook, YouTube, lots of other places too, even Twitch for the young people. Have a great Saturday if you're in the US, and if you are in my time zone, have a great Sunday. I will see you all tomorrow. This has been so much fun. I'm signing off. Kia ora from Christchurch, New Zealand. Bye.